Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be going into EX2 of the new Misery's Beatdown Battle. This is the last stage you do that you get the Misery dupe from before it moves on to Inferno, and the difficulty takes a huge, gigantic spike. So this fight has a lot of gimmicks going on between these three characters. A number of things happen to make your life not very fun. But, as always, if you have the meta team, you can do it very easily. And even without the meta team, this stage isn't that difficult where other teams are not able to at least work around it. So we're going to do this in two parts. Today's part is going to be just a whole bunch of stacking teams. We're going to annihilate these three characters. There are missions, but I've already done them. So, I mean, the last one is beat it with two free-to-play characters, which we can very certainly do. But the HP of these guys is not terribly high, right? 586. Like, we're on a nuking team. We can definitely do that. It's just where Inferno kicks in, where it goes from 586 to 1.7 million. And that's, you know, a little bit of a jump right there. But today, we're only going to be focusing on EX2, so let's build the first Primal Demon team, and we'll get to it. Alright, the first team is going to be the Primal Demon team. All these characters are available on the first banner, right? New Violet, New Diablo, Free-to-Play Misery, Old Violet, first or second Annie Blanc, and then 1.5 Annie Guy. All these characters are available. I'm going to just run this team under the assumption that maybe you pulled some of them, all of them, none of them. But, I mean, it'll give you a decent idea of what needs to happen, at least with this Primal Demon team. Alright, starting out on the Primal Demon team, we're not using, like, the super optimized big damage team with, like, Jean and all that. But, I mean, we have Free-to-Play Misery, we have Blanc, who's on the banner, Diablo, New Violet, and then, we have Guy, who is also, he's an old unit now. He's almost a year old at this point, and that would be considered old in any gacha game term. We're going a little faster pace. These are pre-recorded because I was doing like 8 different teams or something, so I just wanted to get them done and out of the way. But, I mean, we do have Guy, and we do have Diablo here, so we could do 2 different orb changes. We're going to go with Guy to get that orange out, even though we're going to get another one next turn. Hopefully it plays into Misery. One thing I don't really like about Misery is that instead of having the gauge increase on the oranges, so you get, double protector turn 2, she's got the pierce resistance, which, I mean, is good, but also it prevents us from getting that double stack guaranteed on turn 2 that we're used to getting for protectors. Also, this is a completely terrible turn because Misery can only change, at most, 3 oranges. So we're just going to have to eat it. We're going to get binded in next turn. So, let's hope. We've got all of our orb changes up front, and thankfully we got a Guy orb, or a Guy orb change. And Misery's here to convert. So this works out very, very well. But, I mean, even not totally optimized, right? Guy's guaranteed crits are not going to matter here because it doesn't affect us. We can still potentially crit on our natural 2% chance, but, that's 2%. So he's here for the alt buff. Misery's, getting a little bit of pierce resistance down here and there. Diablo's got his buff. And then we've got Violet in the back, who's got the alt resistance down. And because her crit damage part, again, isn't going to matter. And then Blanc is going to give us the weakness strike. And she's going to negate the synergy buff that the enemies have. So if we do happen to hit that natural chance to synergy as well, we're not going to lose damage on it. We're just going to do, like, normal damage, I guess. We're not going to be any stronger because of, like, them being synergy resistance down, but we'll be neutrally, if that makes sense. It cancels out, right? We can synergy and not have any problems with it. That's what I'm trying to get at. Long-winded way to do it. But, I mean, we do have a lot of orb changing going on. We are getting close to a Diablo ult, especially with this hand with 4 orbs. And, I mean, we're looking fairly good. So, this team, like, even though Violet has the capability of doing the whole, unlimited number of skills every turn, we're not really taking advantage of that because none of these units have skills that I really want to double up on every single turn. Like, we have Blanc, so I don't need to use the alt swap ability with Misery, and I'm even less inclined to do so because the alt swap doesn't have the pierce resistance on it, right? That's on the orb change, which we're certainly going to use, so we're going to get, you know, more and more of that. But I think if they put it on the alt swap like they did for free-to-play Gobta last month, it would work a little bit better. But I mean, I understand why they didn't, because they want to keep things, you know, fresh and interesting. And details. All right, so we're on turn 8. We have the EX ult with Diablo. We're going to be fine to nuke here, so we'll do the 2 stacks of Violet, and then we'll go ahead and apply all the different buffs. We'll bring Violet up front and then Guy. So Violet, again, is doing the 55% ult resistance down. Definitely help out. The crit damage, if we do happen to crit, it will be cool, but, you know, I'm not banking on it. Ult damage, weakness strike, synergy resistance, the physical buff, and guaranteed pierce. And Diablo, I want to see how much he does normally with just 1 normal orb here, and then we'll send his ult. And he does 100k, and does 1.7 million. And this fight, they have 586,000 HP, so much overkill already. We didn't need to bring the big Whaley team, but it certainly works. You don't need Blanc, honestly, because, you know, her weakness strike, you could bring, for all I care, Overlord Shizu. You don't even need an ult swapper, because technically you already have one with Misery, and you are able to use that multiple times in a turn because of Violet. So you don't need another ult swapper. You could bring another damage support. You could bring Space Rimuru, for all I care. He's got attack and ult resistance down. The ult resistance wouldn't matter because of Violet, but there's a lot of substitutions you can put on this team. Or you could just bring Jean and pretty much wipe out 2 units worth of support in 1 character. But let's move on. Alright, next up is the Visions of Coleus 2nd Anniversary team. Still a good team, and has 3 Primal Demons on it, so 2 of them are space. We're looking pretty good. Free-to-play Cleache, a unit that does not get used very often, so I wanted to put her back on, you know, the team that she came on, even though she makes not too much of sense when she came out. She's got a magic resistance down debuff, which will help, because this stage does have a lot of magic resistance to begin with, and it will help Violet and Jean do more and more damage. Coleus Rimuru, he's here to convert and give us that sweet, sweet rainbow orb change. Blanc, again, you know, she's here. Jean is now here for primary damage, and then Violet. So we have a lot of support coming just off Jean herself, right? We've got 100% ult. We've got 70% Primal Demon EX ult, which our 2 primary space nukers are Primal Demon. She's got space resistance down, and then she gives herself synergy power, which, you know, will be useful here because we're going to, again, negate their synergy buff, which means that Jean will hit harder because of that 30% extra damage. And then Violet has the magic buff, 100%, straight up. It's so good. I don't know why they had to limit Diablo so much as they did when Violet came out 6 months ago, and she just gives it to everybody. Like, I would have been perfectly fine with Diablo if he just gave 100% physical buff and that's it. Like, I don't give 2 craps about Pierce. It was unnecessary. Just give us a flat-out 100% physical buffer, and he would have been one of the best units in the game. He would have been like number 2 or number 3, somewhere up there, right? That's what makes Violet so good, is she's orb changing and she's got a generic buff. Diablo could have been that same unit, but for physical units, and he unfortunately is not. But we do have a lot of power here. I mean, we got a Jean ult immediately because of that second hand. We don't need it, technically, so I'm not too hyped on using it right now. But we do have a few orbs that we can use, and we're just going to send her away. She's got the attack nerf on her. Fine, whatever. This team is still overpowered enough that we're not going to necessarily need her EX ult to guarantee the kill. You know, as evidenced from the last segment with Diablo, we did triple the amount of damage that we needed to do. So even though these 2 are single target, they're going to have a lot of buffs, and they're going to work well together. And Coleus Valentine Protector is giving us that extra damage buff against wind enemies. So we are inherently doing just more regardless, even though they have a lot of magic resistance and a lot of defense. So here we go. We're binded in, but we got a very lucky hand right there. We were able to actually use Cleache's orb change. And Coleus Rimuru, We're holding on to the rainbow orbs because we're binded, and I don't need alts with Coleus, Rimuru, and Cleash, right? I want alts with Blanc and Jean and Violet, so we're going to wait and use the rainbow orbs a little bit later down the line. This is a hand right here. I mean, we are able to work it, though, so in certain ways. So we've used Cleash's orb change. We're going to take her orb right there. Boom, there's 2. And then we'll use the Coleus Rimuru change right here, and then we can bring Blanc in for either Violet or Rimuru. You know, normally I'd say Violet, but we didn't. So we're going to alt swap, and we'll use Violet's orb change anyways, and then we'll get 2 stacks. That way our 3 primary nukers will get that extra damage buff. And we'll continue on. You know, the attack buff on Jean will wear off after this turn. Not that it really matters all that much. If you're going to plan on nuking with 3 characters, spreading out the damage is something you can do. Or if you only plan on nuking with 2, you could just, for the entire 8 turns of the fight, just send all your damage on 1 person. That way, if you know that your nukers are going to straight up kill the other 2, all of the extra excess damage can then go to that 3rd unit and either kill them with follow-up orbs or, you know, some way around it. Okay. So, here is a pretty good turn. We're going to dismiss Jean here, because she, by herself, is going to be able to wipe. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to Rainbow, and that'll help get us the EX ult for Violet, it'll help get us the ult for Blanc, and we still have 1 extra turn after this to, you know, build up as much as possible. Now, one thing to note is that there is no penalty for going past turn 8. Turn 8 is when their defense leaves and their ult resistance leaves, so it's, you know, you want to nuke on turn 8 because that's the earliest turn you can that we're for maximum damage without having your units take excess. But previously in stacking events, like after you hit turn 8 or turn 9, they start to really ramp up and really like punish you. Not really the case here. They don't really do too much damage after the fact. They don't magically get, you know, 1000%. If you kill 1 unit, the others will get some kind of random, well, not random, but they'll get a second side buff that they never put on in the fight. Like if you kill Daggerel, Frey gives everybody invincibility for 2 turns. If you kill Frey, Daggerel gives everyone counterattacks for a turn. So it is ideal to wipe them all at once to avoid these kind of weird scenarios. But we are on turn 8. Let's use Cleash's magic resistance down, and then we'll bring Blanc in, and we'll just use all 3 of the big buffs, 1 more stack of Lumi, and we're going to wipe everybody off the face of the earth. Blanc is the weakest character here, not having type advantage by being space, not having an EX ult. Not really that big of an issue, though, as we're literally about to find out. So we're going to rotate who's going to hit who, right? Blanc is the weakest, so she should probably hit the lowest HP target, and then the follow-up orbs will take care of anything else. So Jean, we'll go ahead and watch her ult, because we don't get to see it very often right now. And to be honest, we probably won't for the rest of this meta, because we're going to get probably another Jean. So I don't know what they're going to do with her animations, though. 1.2 million, plenty of damage. Violet. So if Jean does 1.2 with a normal ult, right? With a normal ult, Violet with her EX ult is going to do a little bit more, even without that personal synergy buff. Yeah, 2 million. Boom. And then Blanc comes in, hot white-haired waifu with red eyes, dear lord. She will not do 2 million damage, or even 1.7. But she will do enough damage to make it worth it. 646. Again, they only have 548, so she would have wiped from a full HP on any of those characters. But there we go. There's the Visions of Coleus team taking care of business. Let's move on. Alright, third up to bat is the 1.5 anniversary Warriors Mind team. So we've got Velzard, Guy, Warriors Mind Rimuru, Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, Violet, and Lumi. Now, some people may wonder why I'm bringing Fount of Wisdom Rimuru when his physical buff is, you know, about equal to Space Lumi's. And that's because, again, we're not guaranteed to crit. And like 3/4 of this team's damage comes from being able to crit, right? Guy's giving guaranteed crits. Violet is giving people crit damage. Lumi on turn 8 is lowering crit resistance. So we can't rely on all that in this stage. Again, if you can naturally hit that 2%, then great, awesome. I'm not really gonna try and fish for that though. So we need to make ourselves as strong as possible while maintaining, you know, a solid base. The free-to-play unit that came out with Warrior's Mind was Xion. She stacks crit damage. Again, not really that helpful in the stage where you're not guaranteed to crit regardless of what you do. So we're bringing Fount of Wisdom Rimuru because his physical buff is just better than Lumi's if you negate the crit aspect. And on turn 8, we are. So Rimuru's buff is going to be stronger. We're still going to apply all the crit-related stuff just in case, but in this event right here, in this specific setting, Rimuru's buff is superior. And he's got the turn 1 orb change, so he's doing double duty, essentially. We don't have a second turn 2 protection unit here, which is really unfortunate, so we can't get a double stack, but we have enough points to where we can bring in Violet for Guy, get a whole hand, and this is what we need. We have 2 AoE space physical units, which is what the stage wants us to nuke it with. So this will work out fairly well, even though we're missing a lot of our damage. 2 strong EX AoE alts with, you know, at least a physical buff, some attack buffs, and an alt buff. Between the 2, should be able to clear the 500-something thousand HP that they've got. That's no guarantee that this is going to win, you know, Inferno, where they jump up to 1.7 million. But if you only care about getting the free dupes of Misery, this team can certainly get the job done. So we're going to be binded after this turn, so we're bringing in our orb changers to make sure that we can convert all of the hands, or at least potentially convert. We're going to leave Lumi in. She is my stronger of the 2 space units because she has 2 extra dupes. She's got more dupes than Violet. All right, that's an unfortunate hand right there. Even though the game is going to do that anyways for us, next turn we're gonna get 5 greens, and then we're gonna get 6 greens. Well, yeah, 6 greens, unless we have an ult, which I think we do. No, we don't. Never mind. Okay, so they're ulting us. Cool. We don't take that much damage. We're pretty tanky, as long as they don't hit Rimuru. And there's the 6-handed green. Again, it's not super great, but I'm just gonna have to live with it. I'm not even gonna try and do any converting here. It'd just be a waste of points. We're just gonna have to deal with the greens. So we will get a little bit of gauge from it, not a lot because it's lowered by 50%, but it's still something. And it sets us up for this, which is a perfect Guy orb change. And because we have Warrior's Mind Rimuru now, I'm not too concerned about getting alts up until late turn. So Lumi's got her gimmick where she can get an extra protection gauge stack for free. Well, not for free, but she can get an extra stack. We've got Rimuru who's going to swap the alt. And now we use 2 stacks of Violet, and then we can rush the alt on space and earth units with Rimuru. Guess who we're nuking with? Us 2 space units. So there we go. We've got, you know, a free and easy 80% alt gauge right there on turn 6. This gives Violet her, or not Violet, but Valentine her EX alt, and we're 1 orb away from giving it to Violet. So we could use the alt swap or the alt gauge again from Rimuru if we wanted to. Or we could just wait this turn out. And, you know, we have enough points at this point. Or we could just not do anything, which is what I do, right? We're going to sacrifice the EX alt for Violet because I'm confident that we're going to do enough between the 2 with all the buffs active. So we'll bring Rimuru in. We'll use his 65% physical buff, 20% physical resistance down. We'll bring Guy in for the 80% alt, and then we'll use the alt resistance down from Violet, and then on the off chance we crit, we use Lumi's skill as well. So we'll send we'll send Lumi first? Okay, Lumi, cool. She does 438, almost killed. Violet, 217. So there we go. I was confident, and it was warranted. So even though we didn't have 2 EX alts, it's still enough to get the job done because we have 2 space AoE physical nukers. Now let's move on to the last and final team of the video. Okay, the final team. We're going to go through this at light speed because it takes a long time because I do stupid things with it. Fount of Wisdom team, Diablo, the first EX protector, the only other EX Diablo in the game, stacks ult resistance down on the enemy and, does stacking stuff. Blanca's here. Albus is here for the pierce and pierce resistance down and the green orb change. Dark Lumi is here for the permanent ult buff. Water Rimuru, Fount of Wisdom, physical buff, orb changing, and then Hinata here for the attack buff and the special convert for blues. We're going at double speed, and we're probably going to skip ahead because this takes like 16, 17 turns, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to nuke with a type disadvantage Water Rimuru. No, that is not a smart thing to normally do. Why am I doing that? Trying to prove a point that the very first EX team, as long as you build it correctly, can win in this fight if you have, some support and a little bit of knowledge of how to work the game. So this is not a fun run. It took a long time to do. I'm going to skip ahead. I also didn't realize that I made that cut there. So yeah, we're going to cut. We're going to go to turn 3. We're going to go to turn 5, actually. Fine. We brought Blanc because she's going to make our life as easy as possible, right? She's got the triple alt swap. We're going to send these greens. We really need the EX ult with Rimuru, and we need to stack a long time because of having type disadvantage and not having the most powerful of buffs available, and really not being able to take advantage of Blanc's actual support ability because we're not type advantage against anybody. It brings it down to Pierce, attack buff, and a physical buff. And that's about it. So, not really super great. We need to make sure that we can get the stacks of ult resistance down from Diablo, and that's going to take a while. Even with the permanent 80% buff from Lumi that we're going to use here, so now Lumi is done, she's fully buffing the team, it's going to take a hot minute to actually get this done. So, if this is your only option, because you don't want to summon on this Primal Demon team, and you have the Fount of Wisdom team, yes, it can get it done. It's not going to be pleasant, and it might take you a few attempts because of RNG. But if you really, really put your mind to it, it can work out. Okay, so we're on turn 8. This is, the normal turn that we were nuking with the other 3 teams in this video, and as you can see, we're nowhere close to being ready for it. I mean, Rimuru does have an EX ult, sure, awesome, but if we were to nuke now, we'd do about 100k. Maybe a bit more than that, but certainly not 500,000. So we need to keep going and continue to buff and just get rid of all these orbs. Thankfully, now that we have 3 ults, it makes orb changing very easy because there's only 3 orbs that you can really get. And if you get very unlucky, they could be all greens, all oranges. They could be converted to all greens forcibly, but we have ways around that now. So we'll take Rimuru out. I don't want to leave him up too often now because there's no point in having him up front unless we need to orb change. Diablo isn't stacking buffs on our allies. He's stacking a debuff on the enemy. So Rimuru doesn't want to be up front anymore because he's type disadvantage. I don't need him to take any more damage than he already has. So more Diablo, more stacks, and, cool beans. Let's skip forward a little bit to turn 15. This is the longest I've spent in a fight in a very, very long time. But I need to keep going, because I know that even here, we wouldn't do enough damage. Or like 2 turns ago, we were not going to do enough. So now, I think we nuke here. So I'm going to make a quick cut. I'm going to take down the zoom, and we'll watch the actual nuke in real time. Okay. So we're on turn 17. One more final stack of Diablo. We've got our 3 primary buffers up front. So Pierce, attack buff, and the physical buff. Hinata's skill also has a small 40% personal ult buff. I mean, cool. It doesn't help Rimuru at all. So he's only getting the attack buff off that skill. But let's see what happens when we nuke with Rimuru after 17 turns with, quote-unquote maximum power here. We do have a full hand and follow-ups, so if we don't kill everybody, we can certainly do a lot of damage to everybody else. And we are planning for that eventuality right now by spreading the damage out. But Rimuru, he does 625. and they have 548. So we just cleared their HP after 17 turns. And so that's why I'm saying, if we were to have nuked earlier, we would have done so much less damage. We needed those 17 turns. Maybe we could have nuked at maybe turn 15, maybe, and we would have just barely scraped by, or we may not have killed like one of them because the others were at full HP. That could have been a thing. But I needed to make sure that this wasn't a wasted like 45 minutes of a run trying to do this. So there we go. That's 4 stacking blue teams that can take on EX2 of the Beatdown Battle to get that final dupe of Misery. I will have a part 2 coming out, maybe not tomorrow, but in a couple days, that has a number of alternate teams that can certainly do it if you have the available units. But let me know what you guys think. That's it for me. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.